Deny the anger, deny the hurts. A conference on the dynamics of hate would be incomplete without engaging with an emotion that is both deeply personal and profoundly political: anger. Athlone, where I practice as a clinical psychologist, is at the historical heart of our struggle against the apartheid regime. There, anger was the fuel that awoke an ability to bring an end to political oppression. However, anger makes us immediately uncomfortable. Too often we're taught to fear anger, to dismiss it, to control it. Anger is not the enemy. It is the voice of an awakened conscience, the voice that calls out when something sacred, our dignity, our shared humanity, has been violated. The student protests across US campuses were powerful expressions of this kind of anger. Students, driven by compassion and an unwavering sense of injustice, came together to stand up against policies and actions they see as threats to human rights and dignity. But their message, their very anger, has been twisted by those in power. Rather than engaging with their concerns, media and authorities painted their actions as chaotic, unruly, dangerous. This is a form of narrative control, diverting attention from the deeper urgent issues and diminishing the very humanity in their cause for change. To truly understand the anger we are witnessing, we must dig deeper into layers of history, trauma, and systemic neglects. This anger is rarely a reaction to a single event. Rather, it is rooted in years, embodied within generations, suffering from structural violence, poverty, and disempowerment. For countless of our brothers and sisters living in marginalized communities, anger has been simmering, building up over time as their lives are shaped by systems that deny them basic dignity and respect. When anger surfaces, it is not impulsive or reckless. It is the long silenced voice of communities demanding justice. We are angry. This is not just a fleeting emotion. It's an anger born of desperation and fear, a trauma so deep that it seeps into every corner of life. It's the anger of people whose livelihoods and futures are uncertain. In communities where poverty is entrenched, they know what it means to go to bed hungry, to live in substandard housing, to face violence and lack of opportunity. They know the feeling of being overlooked, being treated as inferior to those with wealth and privilege who keep turning a blind eye. They are angry because society has conditioned them to expect little and ridicules them when they demand more. Structural violence is not just personal suffering. It's built into the colonial systems that shape our lives. When the collective protests, they're not just angry about one issue, they're calling out a lifetime of deprivation and neglect. This is not just a reaction to a policy or a politician, it's a demand for a humane society, one that values every life. The US students were angry because they saw a future where they too may be trapped in this cycle, where their potential will be squandered by a society that values profits and power over people. Among the protesters were those burdened with debts, uncertain job prospects, and the feelings that their future is on a knife's edge. And then they learn that their tuition fees, the economic sacrifices of their families and themselves, are indirectly funding activities that contradict their values, that harm others. Their anger, their disillusionment is real and deeply justified. Through forced removal, they were silenced. The media coverage focused on how they protested rather than their message. This misdirection allowed President Joe Biden to sidestep addressing their calls for transparency and accountability. As a result, they were not heard. Gaza has been decimated into rubble. The latest statistics estimate 44,383 deaths, including 16,765 children, 102,929 injured and maimed, and more than 10,000 missing. The UN has reported that a convoy carrying food aid from Jordan to Gaza was attacked by Israeli settlers. The EU's top diplomat, Joseph Borrell Fontelle, stated, "It is despicable that people who lack nothing stop food reaching those in need." It seems frivolous to even speak about the total lack of respect for life and human value, because in a sense, it is too late. The hospitals have already been reduced to rubble, schools to dust, and homes, the dignified spaces of families, love, and belonging, have become the coffins of those who have not yet had the dignity of being counted and buried. The anger of students not wanting to indirectly finance a genocide when silenced does not simply disappear. It festers, it grows more intense, more urgent. This is the anger that we see in the students' protest, a refusal to accept a status quo that devalues the lives and dreams of the people they are protesting for. Their anger is not an attack on society. It is a demand for a society that acknowledges their humanity, their trauma, their potential. Senator Bernie Sanders, observing these protests, saw a reflection of the demonstrations of the 1960s, when students across the country stood up against injustices they could not tolerate. Then, students challenged the actions of their government, refusing to stand silently by as policies were enacted that did not represent their values. Sanders remarked on this parallel, suggesting that history was once again repeating itself. Like their predecessors, today's youth have a keen sense of justice and are unafraid to act on it. The irony that their predecessors became the governments they are now protesting against was not lost on Sanders. Today's students face a more subtle, insidious form of suppression: narrative control. The misrepresentation of these protests as violent is not only inaccurate but offensive to the spirit of the students' actions. They came in the spirit of unity and peaceful protest, organizing events that reflected a commitment to constructive change. During their campus occupations, they held yoga sessions, origami classes, meditation gatherings, and even the Passover Seder's to foster inclusivity. These were not the actions of a violent mob, but a thoughtful and compassionate coalition. 116 student organizations, including the Jewish Voice for Peace chapter, Justice in Palestine chapter, Asian American Alliance, Caribbean Students Associations, and Black Students Organizations, striving for justice. They created spaces for reflection and connection, grounded in empathy and understanding, a clear contradiction to the image painted by media and authority figures. The commitment to nonviolence underscores the deep integrity of their cause. These students did not rush into anger. It emerged as a response to a repeated dismissal of their universities that bypassed governing procedures and denied students an opportunity to appeal. And on the 9th of November 2023, when peaceful methods of engagement were stripped away, they had no choice but to demonstrate. And here we come to a difficult truth, one that Frantz Fanon expressed with clarity and conviction. In a world entrenched in oppression where justice is denied, violence sometimes becomes a necessary force in reclaiming dignity and autonomy. As Fanon writes, when we revolt, it's not for a particular culture. We revolt simply because we can no longer breathe. When anger is continually stifled, when voices are perpetually silenced, the pressure builds and violence emerges as a demand for recognition and freedom. Violence does not have to be physical. Violence to assist them is the refusal to play the role assigned to us. It's the refusal to be compliant and complicit. In the case of the US student protests, they were only violent in their refusal to be silenced. The violence is a disruption of society until it takes note and pays attention. We are challenged to rethink when we say anger is uncivilized. A society that refuses to hear its people's anger, suppresses dissent without addressing its cause, is the actual culprit for the violence that eventually erupts. Fanon's words stand as a warning. Deny people their voice for too long, and anger will no longer wait patiently to be heard. When violence erupts, the oppressor feels justified in saying, violence is the only language these people will understand. Send the army. This is the result of weaponizing prejudiced fear. When the anger of the oppressed is perceived as uncivilized, then it becomes natural for those in power to deploy violence in the colonial context because the dehumanized subject is perceived to not respond to anything else. The strong sedatives of power, prejudice, and belief that a people have a divine right to existence on this planet have proved so strong that we are in a chasm of deep spiritual poverty. We are asleep while the humanity around us has crumbled. But at the heart of these protests lies a plea, not just for transparency, but for a deeper, more connected understanding of our shared humanity. A call for Ubuntu. Ubuntu, an African philosophy, teaches us that I am through you, you are through us. It reminds us that our humanity is interconnected, that when one person suffers, we all suffer. When one group is denied justice, all of society is diminished. All of humanity is diminished. These student protests embody Ubuntu. They are not demanding privileges for themselves. They are advocating for a world where transparency, dignity, and mutual respect are upheld for all. It's an expression of collective care and the belief in a society that recognizes our interconnectedness, where the well-being of one group directly influences the health of the entire community. Rick Turner challenges us through utopian thinking to envision a world structured around our core values. Such a vision unchains our minds from beliefs that limit us, inviting us to reimagine our society in ways that align with empathy, respect, and community. Structural violence, colonialism, and socialization have conditioned us to accept roles as superior or inferior, reinforcing divisions. But Ubuntu asks us to look beyond inherited hierarchies and to imagine a society where relationships, not material gains, define our lives. Embracing Ubuntu helps us recognize the potential for solidarity and collective action beyond these artificial boundaries. Ubuntu replaces dependency that is caused as a result of structural violence and inferiority, and replace it with creativity, freedom, and solidarity. In conclusion, as we stand here today, I ask you to look beyond the anger and see the humanity, the pain, and the courage within it. To engage with anger is not to condone violence, but to create space for healing. Ubuntu demands that we do more than regulate or control. It demands that we listen, that we connect, that we lift each other up, recognizing that our fates are bound together. This moment calls on us to make a choice. Will we continue to control the narratives, to dismiss, to contain people who have opinions that challenge us, and people who make us aware of our own complicity in causing harm? Or will we embrace Ubuntu? Will we recognize that we are bound together, that our lives, our pain, and our hopes are interconnected? Will we honor the courage of those who stand up, who refuse to remain silent, and who demand a better world. Let us make visible what is so often diverted. Let us honor the voices of those who have been marginalized, dismissed, and silenced. Let us recognize that their anger is a call for justice, a call for community, and a call for healing. And let us remember that true strength lies not in control, for to deny the anger is to deny the hurts. To deny the hurt is to take away our complicity and our responsibility at the cost of the people that we hurt. To deny someone's hurts is the most hateful, hostile action that an oppressor can do to the oppressed. It is at the core of hate. It limits the capacity of the individual, of the collective. We cannot reform or move forward until we allow for anger. We are here because of our anger, are we not? As for non-enlightened us, anger is the fuel for change, for us to finally be able to breathe. Thank you for your time.